Before we begin, let the silence settle around you. Not the kind you hear, the kind you feel crawling into the corners of the room. The story I'm about to tell wasn't meant to be spoken out loud. Someone carried it alone for far too long, afraid that saying it would make it real again. If a piece of their truth touches something you've kept buried, you can tell me in the comments. And if these quiet shadows keep pulling you back, you can like the video, subscribe, and tap the bell icon. Now don't move. Some memories wake up when they're listened to. I still hear the crunch of snow under my tires when I close my eyes. It's been 3 years now, but that sound, it's stitched into the back of my brain. Some nights, I swear I hear it even when I'm sitting in my living room with the heat on and no windows open. A soft, steady crackle, like something heavy is walking circles around my house. My name's Daniel. I'm 32, and I used to think I understood loneliness. I grew up in a small New England town where winter lasted longer than joy ever did. I worked evenings at a diner right off Route 12, one of those places with flickering neon, old coffee, and the kind of regulars who never smile unless someone dies or wins the lottery. Back then, life wasn't great, but it was predictable. I kept to myself, didn't drink, didn't really have friends. I thought the worst thing about night shifts was the cold. I was wrong. If I had known what was coming, I would have called out that night. Hell, I would have quit. It was early January, right after a snowstorm had buried the town in a few inches of powder. I clocked out at 12:27 a.m., my breath fogging in the air as I walked to my truck. The whole world felt strangely quiet, quieter than usual. No wind, no distant cars, just the soft hum of the street lamp fighting the cold. I told myself the silence felt peaceful. Didn't. That was the first sign something was wrong. The roads were empty as I headed north toward my place. The snow was thick enough that my tires slipped every few minutes, just enough to make my heart jump. My headlights cut through long, narrow tunnels of white as I drove through the tree-lined road. And that's when I saw it. At first, it looked like shadows moving between the pines, quick streaks, low to the ground, too fast to be animals. I blinked hard, told myself I was tired, told myself I was imagining things. I told myself I was fine. I wasn't. About 5 miles out, right at the bend near the old quarry, my headlights washed over a figure standing dead center in the road. Just standing there, not moving, not reacting. Tall, pale shape, no coat, no hat, skin almost glowing in the cold white light. My hands clenched the wheel so tight they hurt. I swerved hard, skidding sideways, my truck fishtailing before gripping the ice again. My pulse slammed in my ears as I tried to slow down. In the rearview mirror, I saw the figure turn its head. Slowly, too slowly, like its neck wasn't built for the movement. Something inside me screamed to keep going, but curiosity, fear, something made me look back. That's when everything stopped making sense. The figure wasn't in the mirror anymore. It was beside my truck, running. I swear on my life it kept perfect pace with me. Its face inches from the window, blank. Snow-white skin stretched tight across sharp cheekbones. No expression, no visible breath, just empty eyes. I floored it. My truck roared but barely gained speed on the icy road. The thing kept up, effortless, silent, its head tilted slightly, watching me drive like it was studying me, memorizing me. My hands trembled as I fumbled for my phone. The screen showed no service. I held it up anyway, waving it like an idiot, hoping for a miracle. That's when the figure vanished. Not fell back, not slowed down, vanished. 1 second it was right there, the next the road beside me was empty. I should have turned around, should have gone back to the diner. But fear doesn't make you logical, it makes you stupid and desperate. I kept driving, taking every turn sharper and faster than I should have. And then, there it was again, standing at the next bend, facing me, waiting. How? I whispered. My breath froze on the windshield. I swerved around it again, tires hissing over the snow. My heart felt like it was trying to claw out of my chest. Every warning instinct I'd ever ignored in my life screamed at me to get somewhere bright, somewhere with people. The only thing open at that hour was the gas station up on Hilford Road. It was maybe 3 miles away. 3 miles of hell. The figure showed up at every turn. Sometimes ahead of me, sometimes to the side, sometimes just behind the tree line, pacing me in the shadows. Never running out of breath. Never slipping. Never blinking. The temperature in the truck dropped so fast I could see my own breath pouring out in long, shivering clouds. My hands went numb on the wheel. The radio cut to static. The cab filled with the sharp smell of cold metal and something else. Something like wet earth and rot. I kept whispering, "Please stop, please stop, please stop," like begging the road itself. When I finally saw the gas station lights in the distance, I felt this wave of hope break through the panic. Fluorescent, ugly, buzzing lights. More beautiful than anything I'd seen in months. But something was wrong. The lights flickered. Once, twice, then steadied. I pulled in fast, skidding to a stop so hard the seatbelt dug into my collarbone. I jumped out and ran inside. The warmth hit me first. The smell of old coffee and rubber mats grounded me. I clung to the counter like a drowning man grabbing onto a lifeboat. The attendant, older guy, wired glasses, always chewing on toothpicks, looked up with this startled expression. "Jesus, kid, you look like you saw a ghost." I think someone's following me," I said. My voice cracked. I felt like a little kid again. He frowned. "No one came in. I'm telling you." Someone was right behind me. Pale guy. On the road. Running next to my truck. He shook his head before I even finished. "I've been standing right here for the last 2 hours. Door never opened. No one walked by the windows." My eyes drifted toward the glass door. Snow. Darkness. Empty. Too empty. My heart sank. Because I knew he was telling the truth. Whatever had been following me, it hadn't come inside. It didn't need to. I stayed there until sunrise. Didn't dare step outside. Even with people coming and going, that dread stayed with me, like cold fingers pressing against the back of my neck. Eventually, I forced myself to drive home. I didn't see anything on the way. No figures. No shadows. No footprints in the snow. For a while, I convinced myself it was over. That maybe I was exhausted. Overworked. Losing it. But the first storm of the season came a month later. And that night, when I looked out my front window, I saw them. Footprints. Leading up my street. Straight lines. Evenly spaced. Human-shaped. But no prints leading away. Just one set. Stopping right at my driveway. Facing my house. And every winter since, whenever the lights flicker, I see that same pale figure standing just beyond the street lamp. Not moving. Not breathing. Watching. Waiting. I don't think it ever left me. And if you're hearing this, just pray it doesn't like your scent the way it liked mine. I shouldn't have gone up there. God, if there's one thing I wish I could undo, it's opening that attic door. Because whatever I let into my life that night never left. My name's Evan. I'm 34 now, but this happened when I was 27. I had just moved into my grandmother's old farmhouse in rural Ohio, the one she left me after she passed. I didn't really want the place. Too many childhood memories. Too many corners that still smelled like her lavender powder and old paperbacks. But rent was steep and I was broke, so there I was, trying to make a dead woman's house feel like mine. It was Christmas Eve. Cold enough that the windows rattled when the wind hit them. Snow wrapped the house in a kind of muffled silence, the kind that makes you feel like you're the only person left in the world. I'd been unpacking all day, room by room, avoiding the attic like a kid avoids the dark. But eventually I told myself I needed the old holiday decorations stored up there. That was the first lie I told myself that night. There would be more. The attic steps creaked like they were warning me. Old wood always had that smell, dry, dusty, a little sour. But when I pushed the door open, a different scent drifted out. Something faint, something rotten. The kind of smell that makes your nose wrinkle before your brain catches up. I should have turned back. Deep down, I knew that. But I ignored it. I always ignored those small warnings. I went up with a box under my arm, my breath turning into white mist in front of me. The attic was colder than the rest of the house, unnaturally cold. My fingertips tingled like they'd been submerged in ice water. The single bulb hanging from the ceiling flickered as I pulled the chain. That's when I saw it. A small box resting on top of an old trunk. I didn't recognize it. Gold-painted edges. Thin, delicate carvings. Too fancy for my grandmother, who'd always preferred handmade things. Inside was an ornament. Round, antique-looking. Glass that seemed older than the house itself. But it wasn't the ornament that got my attention. It was the smell. Rot, damp soil. A hint of metal, like dried blood on cold iron. My stomach tightened. My hands hesitated. But curiosity is a dangerous thing, especially when you're alone and trying to convince yourself you're brave. The second I touched it, I heard whispering behind me. Not loud, not clear, just a soft thread of sound, like breath brushing past my ear. I froze. I didn't even breathe. The attic floor groaned, one slow, deliberate step. But I was alone. Part of me said, leave. Another part said, turn around. Stupidly, I listened to the second one. There was nothing there. Just shadows stretching across old rafters and insulation. The bulb buzzed overhead, swaying slightly even though the air was still. I put the ornament down, and the whispering stopped instantly, like someone had pressed pause. I remember telling myself it was the wind. But the wind doesn't whisper your name. That night, I tried to sleep in the downstairs bedroom. I kept the lights on. The air had that heavy winter stillness, the kind that presses on your chest while you're lying awake. Every crack in the walls, every groan of the house felt sharper. Sometime after 2 a.m., I heard it again, whispering, soft, rhythmic, like someone murmuring through dry leaves. I sat up. The room was dim, lit only by the lamp I'd left on. And that's when I saw it. The ornament, on my nightstand. I swear to you, it hadn't been there when I went to bed. I'd left it in the attic. I remembered placing it on the trunk. I remembered backing away from it. But there it was, sitting perfectly still, perfectly centered, like someone had placed it there while I slept. My hands shook as I picked it up. The cold hit me immediately, so sharp it made my bones ache. The glass was colder than anything should be inside a heated house. I whispered, no, just that one word. It was all I could manage. I opened the window and threw the ornament into the snowbank outside. I watched it disappear under a puff of powder. I waited for the sound of shattering glass. It never came. The next morning it was back on the nightstand. Same spot, same angle. Same faint smell of rot curling into the room. I didn't touch it this time. Couldn't. Every instinct told me that touching it again would be a mistake I might not walk away from. Instead, I wrapped it in a towel without letting my skin meet the glass and shoved it deep into a dresser drawer. But that night, around 3:11 a.m., the whispering came back. Louder, more insistent. Something brushing the walls. Something pacing the hallway. A long, slow drag of movement, like bare feet gliding over the wood. I opened my bedroom door and the hallway light flickered, casting long, crawling shadows across the floorboards. My throat tightened. The cold in the air was so thick it felt like inhaling ice. And at the end of the hallway, leaning against the attic door, was the ornament. No towel, no drawer, just the glass, bare, wet with condensation like it had been breathing. I backed into my room and shut the door hard enough to make the frame shake. My fingers fumbled with the lock. The whispering grew louder, circling the door. I pressed my ear against the cold wood, praying I was imagining it. I wasn't. There was breathing, just on the other side. Slow, heavy, wet. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't sleep for many nights after that. The attic door began creaking open by itself. Sometimes in the early morning, sometimes in the dead of night. The smell of rot seeped down the stairs. There were soft scratches inside the walls, floorboards shifting when I wasn't walking. I called my mom, told her the house felt wrong. She said it was just grief, just stress, just adjusting. If only it were that simple. One night I woke up freezing. My breath fogged in front of me. The lamp I always left on had gone out. The room felt dense, like something was sitting on the air itself. My eyes adjusted slowly, and I saw it. The ornament was on my chest, resting right over my heart, and something in the dark was holding it there. I felt fingers, thin, ice cold, digging through the blanket, a pressure that wasn't human, a shape leaning over me, its breath sour and warm against my cheek. I couldn't move, couldn't scream. All I managed was a single, broken whisper. "Please." The thing exhaled, a low, rattling sound that filled the room with decay. Then the weight lifted. The ornament rolled onto the bed beside me. I didn't wait. I grabbed my keys, ran barefoot into the snow, and didn't look back. I left the lights on. I left the door open. I left everything. The house sold 2 years later. Cheaply. The new owners never called me, never asked questions. But sometimes, late at night, I checked the listing photos, the ones still online. And in the attic picture on top of that old trunk, there it is, the ornament, waiting. If you ever move into an old house, and you find something that doesn't belong to your family, something cold, something that smells wrong, don't touch it, please, for your own sake. I'll never forget the eyes. Even now, years later, when I drive past that church, snow piled against the sidewalks, I feel them, cold, empty, watching, burning into the back of my skull. My name's Laura. I was 24 at the time, living in a small town in northern Michigan. I'd grown up here. Quiet streets, more snow than grass, everyone knowing everyone's business. That December, I'd signed up to volunteer at the church's Christmas pageant, setting up the nativity scene, helping with lights, corralling kids in sheep costumes. I liked the idea of giving back, of being part of something that felt bigger than the monotony of my life. That night, the air was sharp with frost. You could see your breath in clouds that seemed to hang still. The snow pressed against my boots like cold concrete. I remember thinking how peaceful it was, almost too peaceful. That should have been the first sign something was wrong. We were outside, stringing lights across the manger, making sure the hay was fluffed just right. The kids were giggling, their breath fogging in the air. And then I noticed him, a man, standing maybe 30 feet away, past the manger, just watching. He didn't move, didn't shift his weight, didn't even seem to breathe, just eyes locked on us. The kind of gaze that makes the skin crawl. I blinked and looked again. He was still there. I told myself it was fine. I'm usually anxious around strangers, especially in the dark. Maybe a passerby, maybe someone from the town. But something about him wasn't right. I tried to focus on the lights, the angel atop the tree, the halo glow from the nativity. When I glanced back, he'd moved closer. Not by walking exactly, more like he'd been sliding forward. Too deliberate, too silent. I called out to him, trying to sound casual. "Hi, do you need help?" Nothing. My coworkers didn't notice him. I even nudged one of them. "Do you see that guy over there?" They shook their heads. "What guy?" That's when the panic started. A slow crawl up my spine. My hands went clammy, my teeth chattering. Not from cold. I told myself I was imagining it. I wasn't. By the time we finished, the man was closer. And that's when I noticed the eyes. Black, unblinking, like holes cut into the night. I can still see them when I close my eyes. After we wrapped up, I walked to my car. The snow had thickened, muffling the world into this unreal quiet. My boots sank slightly with every step. And then I saw him again, standing by the church entrance. Watching, I froze mid-step. My stomach dropped. The lights from the manger cast long shadows. But even with them, he seemed to absorb the darkness, not just stand in it. And then he raised a hand. Just one, slow, deliberate, pointing straight at the manger. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. My heart hammered against my ribs so loud I was sure he could hear it. Then he ran. Not like a person, not with ordinary feet. Too fast, too silent, like gravity didn't touch him. 1 second he was there, and the next, nothing. Just the empty snow, the faint crunch of the ice under my boots, and the faint smell of wet earth that lingered after him. I drove home in a daze. The streets were empty, the snow still falling. Every turn of the headlights revealed empty road, yet I had this sinking feeling, heavy and constant, that he was still there, watching, waiting. Weeks passed. I tried to tell myself it was a trick of the dark. Exhaustion, seasonal stress, maybe even a shadow I'd misread. But the memory gnawed at me, gnawing at the edges of my reality. Every time I passed that church afterward, a cold shiver ran down my spine. I'd feel it before I even saw the building. Like the air itself was thick with him. I started noticing small things. Footsteps behind me in empty parking lots. A shadow that lingered just at the corner of my vision. The faintest whisper of movement in the snow, just outside the circle of light from my headlights. One night, months later, I drove past the church. The streetlights flickered overhead, and for a second, I thought I saw him standing at the edge of the parking lot. No coat, no movement, eyes locked on me. My chest tightened. My hands went numb on the wheel. I sped away. I told myself it was over, that I'd imagined it again. But I never really have been able to shake that feeling. Not completely. I've tried talking to people about it. Friends, family, even a counselor. Most say I must have seen someone's reflection in the snow, or a passerby I didn't notice. But that doesn't explain the hand, or the speed, or the silence, or the eyes. Sometimes, late at night, when the world is quiet and the snow presses against my windows, I swear I hear him. Footsteps just outside, or a soft drag across the snow, closer than it should be. I tell myself I'm safe inside. I know logically I am, but the fear, it lingers, physical, pressing against my chest. I know it's been years, and I know rationally he's probably gone. But I also know some things don't leave. Some presences don't need bodies to exist. They just wait, and I still see him. Not every night, not in detail, just enough, just the eyes, always watching. If you ever find yourself at a quiet Christmas display, alone after dark, and you feel that prickling at the back of your neck, trust it. Look around carefully. Make sure you really are alone, because I wasn't, and whatever watched me that night, it hasn't forgotten. I still remember the weight of that stocking in my hands, the soft velvet under my fingers, the faint smell of pine from the fireplace, and then that doll. My name's Michael. I'm 42 now. This happened when I was 12 Christmas morning in our quiet Pennsylvania suburb. The kind of neighborhood where snow clung to rooftops and cars left perfect white tracks in the driveways. Life felt safe then, ordinary, predictable, and yet, that morning changed something in me I've never shaken. I ran to the fireplace before anyone else like I always did. The stockings were hanging neatly, mine, my sister's, my parents'. I reached inside mine, expecting candy, maybe a small toy. My fingers brushed against something hard, something wrong. I froze. It was a doll, small, blackened, charred in places. The smell hit me before I even saw it. Smoke, rot, like burnt wood and wet ash mingled with something sour I couldn't name. My stomach twisted. My parents hadn't given it to me. I knew that. My sister hadn't touched it. Her stocking was untouched. I held it up. Its tiny eyes, glossy and black, stared up at me. They weren't innocent. They were aware. I dropped it back into the stocking, shaking. I told myself it was just a weird toy someone had sent by mistake. But my fingers tingled. Goosebumps ran up my arms. Something about it made the air feel heavier. Later that day, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. I sat under the tree, my back to the fireplace, trying to read a comic book. The doll sat on the floor, half buried under wrapping paper. I told myself I was fine. I wasn't. Every glance toward it made my chest tighten. Every shadow in the corner of the room felt alive. That night, I heard the tapping. Soft, rhythmic. Not from the window, not from the walls. It was coming from the stocking. I lay frozen under the covers, my heart hammering, staring at the slight rise and fall of the fabric. The taps grew louder, insistent, deliberate. I whispered my parents' names. They laughed when I told them. "It's just a toy, Michael," they said. "Go to sleep." I didn't sleep. The next day, I tried burning the doll. I left the fireplace embers hot, tossed it in. Smoke curled up, black and choking. I held my breath, and when the ashes settled, it wasn't there. Relief. Then, hours later, I found it again. On the mantel, perfectly placed, facing me. Black eyes catching the morning sun. I tried hiding it in my closet, in the attic, under the porch. Every morning it was back. Its presence was small, quiet, but it weighed on me like cold iron. I began avoiding the stocking entirely, pretending it wasn't there. But I could feel it watching, waiting, and sometimes I swore I could hear it whisper my name when the house was still. I started sleeping with the light on. Always. Shadows crawling across the walls became threats. Every crack, every loose floorboard made me jump. I knew it was just a doll, rationally, but something in me knew better. Something in me remembered that smell, that weight, the way its eyes seemed to follow my every movement. Years passed. I grew up. I moved out. I tried forgetting. But every Christmas, I hung my stocking. And every Christmas, that same tightening in my chest returned. I'd feel the eyes, tiny and patient, pressed against the fabric, waiting for me to reach inside. I tell myself I was imagining it. Maybe I was. But sometimes, when the fire went out and the house fell silent, I swear I hear a soft tap against the mantel, or a drag across the floorboards, or a whisper I can't place, just at the edge of hearing. I've never told anyone this. Not a friend. Not my parents. My sister would laugh. They all would. But the memory, it doesn't fade. The weight of that doll, the smell of smoke and ash and rot, the cold press of its tiny presence in the room, it's still with me. Last year, I went home for Christmas. I stayed in the old house alone for a night. I hung my stocking. I didn't put anything in it, just out of habit. Around 2 in the morning, I heard it. Tap, 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 soft, deliberate, coming from the fireplace. My breath caught. My skin crawled. My hands shook. I forced myself to look. The stocking swayed slightly. Nothing else. I told myself it was the wind. I knew it wasn't. I didn't sleep. I didn't eat. I drove back the next morning. The house was quiet. The snow had buried every sound, but I could feel the weight, pressing from behind, invisible, patient. Even now, when I hang a stocking, I feel the eyes. Tiny, black, aware, watching me, waiting. I'll reach in, and the skin on my arms prickles. Goosebumps rise along my spine. I don't know what waits at the bottom. I don't want to. Some things you can't throw away. Some things don't obey logic. They just wait, patient, silent, watching, and I still feel it. 30 years later, I'll never be rid of it. So if you ever find something small, blackened, out of place in your stocking, think carefully before touching it. Some gifts aren't meant to be opened. Some things just wait. I should have stayed home that night. My name's Emma. I was 26, living in a small Chicago neighborhood tucked between wide streets and old brick buildings. It was December, snow falling thick and steady, the kind that muffles sound and makes everything feel unreal. I had been walking to clear my head, listening to the faint echoes of carolers from a few blocks over. Their voices mixed with the hum of streetlights, golden halos against the white snow. Peaceful, I told myself, but I should have known better. The first time I noticed it, I thought it was someone new joining the carolers. A figure stepped out from the shadows, blending into the group. Tall, thin, face obscured by a scarf and hood. But it didn't sing. Not a word. Not a whisper. It just moved with them, perfectly timed, like it belonged but didn't. I felt a chill run up my spine, sharp and immediate. The snow seemed heavier then, wet against my gloves, cold seeping through the seams. I shook my head. I'm imagining it, I told myself, but my gut didn't believe me. As I turned to leave, I saw it again. Not with the carolers this time. Standing a block ahead, unmoving, watching me. The streetlight caught the curve of its scarf, the slope of its shoulders. I paused. Footsteps crunched behind me. I glanced back. Nothing. But then, when I looked ahead, it had shifted closer. A step or two. I blinked, and it froze just like that. I walked faster. My breath fogged in short bursts. My hands shook inside my coat pockets. Each time I turned a corner, it was there. Never running, never approaching, just drifting, sliding silently between houses, keeping pace without effort. By the time I reached my own block, my chest was tight, my stomach twisting. The streetlights cast long shadows, but the snow reflected the glow in patches, and I could see its silhouette again, standing near the next house. I froze, thinking it can't be real. I ran the last few steps to my door, fumbling with keys, fumbling with the lock. The figure didn't move. I slammed the door, twisted the deadbolt. My heart pounded so loudly I thought it would break my ribs. I pressed my forehead to the glass, staring out. The snow swirled, lights flickered, but it was gone. The next morning I looked outside, footprints in the fresh snow, leading straight to my window. I stepped out. No one had been there. The prints didn't start anywhere, they just appeared, perfectly spaced, vanishing into nothing. My hands trembled so hard I couldn't hold a coffee cup. My mother knocked, laughing at my pale face. "Emma, it's snow. Someone probably walked through last night." But I knew no one had. For weeks, I avoided walking alone after dark. I avoided even looking at the block where the carolers had been. But the memory lingered. The feeling of eyes on the back of my neck, the soft scrape of snow against boots that weren't there, the faint hum of a voice, almost singing, whenever the wind blew just right. One night, 3 weeks later, I was leaving a late shift at a diner. Snow again, thick, clinging to my coat. I crossed the street, headlights reflecting off the flakes, and there it was. A shadow, tall and silent, standing near a street lamp I passed every night. My chest went tight. My breath quickened. The air seemed to vibrate. I ran, zigzagging between streetlights, glancing back. It mirrored me, step for step, block for block. Not fast, not chasing, but relentless. I ducked into an alley, hoping to lose it. The smell hit me then. Cold metal, wet asphalt, faint rot. I gagged. My hands scraped against brick as I pressed myself against the wall, heart hammering, ears straining. Footsteps, soft, uneven, pacing. It wasn't walking. Not exactly. Not like any human could. I bolted again. The snow muffled everything but the sound in my ears. The uneven, eerie rhythm of boots on frozen ground. I couldn't tell if it was real or a trick of the wind. I ran until I reached my apartment building, throwing the door open, slamming it behind me. My body shook uncontrollably, wet snow melting on the carpet. I don't know how long I sat there, pressed against the wall, listening. And then I heard it. A soft, distorted melody. Someone singing. Just a few notes, uneven. Outside. Or in my mind? I don't know. I haven't walked alone at night since. I don't leave my apartment after dark unless someone's with me. Every winter, when the first snow falls and the neighborhood lights go up, I hear it. Soft, uneven singing, echoing off the empty streets, mixing with the wind. Sometimes I swear I see it in the corner of my window. An elongated shadow, drifting, still faceless. Watching, waiting. People tell me it was stress, exhaustion, my mind playing tricks. Maybe they're right. Maybe I was imagining it. But I can still feel the cold press of its presence. The way the snow seemed to carry its weight. The faint scrape of footsteps in silence. My hands still tremble at the memory. My chest still tightens at the thought of walking alone after dark. And the worst part? I've never seen it approach. Never felt it touch me. But I know it's there. Patient. Waiting. I can feel its eyes on me every winter, even when I hide indoors. Some nights, when the lights are out and the city is silent except for the faint hum of heaters and distant traffic, I swear I hear it again. That soft, uneven singing, just outside my window, and I know deep down it hasn't stopped following. If you're walking alone this winter, snow falling, streets quiet, and you hear faint singing behind you, don't turn. Just keep moving, because some shadows don't need a body to follow you, and some songs never end. I wasn't supposed to open it. My name's Claire. I was 28, and that Christmas I was holed up in a tiny cabin in Vermont with my fiancé, Daniel. Snow had buried the world outside, turning the forest into a silent white void, the kind of quiet that presses against your ears, makes you hyper-aware of every creak and whisper. We'd planned it as a simple holiday, away from phones, away from work, away from everything. That's why I remember it so vividly, because that night, everything changed. The gift appeared on our doorstep the morning we arrived. Small, wrapped in brown paper, tied with a string. No note, no name, just sitting there partially buried under snow. Daniel shrugged. Probably one of the neighbors, he said, but something about it felt wrong. I told myself I was overthinking. I picked it up. My hands felt cold through the paper. Damp. The snow had seeped through. I should have left it there. I didn't. Inside was a music box, small, ornate, wood carved with intricate patterns. I lifted the lid. A soft, thin whistle came out. A tune I didn't recognize. Almost sweet, almost familiar. I set it on the table between us. Daniel laughed, shaking his head. "You and your curiosity," he said. "It's just a music box." I forced a smile. I told myself I was fine. I wasn't. That night, we went to bed early. Snow pounding against the windows, wind moaning through the trees. Around midnight, I woke to a sound. A whistling, high-pitched, slow, deliberate. I sat up. Daniel stirred beside me. "It's just the wind," he mumbled. I told myself he was right. I told myself I was imagining it. But the sound wasn't coming from the music box. I knew that instinctively. The box was across the room, closed. Yet the whistling filled the corners of the cabin, wrapping around me. I got out of bed. My slippers whispered against the cold wooden floor. The smell hit me first. Old wood, damp pine, something faintly metallic, like blood or rust. Goosebumps ran up my arms. I scanned the room. Shadows moved in the corners, flickering across the walls in the weak light from the lamp. Then I saw it. A shadow, tall, thin, stretching across the far wall. It didn't have a shape, not really, but I could feel it. It followed me as I moved, step by step. "Claire." Daniel's voice was calm but sleepy. "It's nothing." I told myself he was right. I should have ignored it. I told myself it was just the wind. I wasn't imagining the music, was I? My heart pounded. Every nerve in my body screamed. I backed toward the bedroom door, watching that shadow bend and stretch along the wall, as if it knew exactly where I would go next. It wasn't fast, not like it needed to chase me, but it was patient, relentless. I spent hours in bed after that, eyes wide, listening. The whistling came again, soft at first, then louder, closer, echoing off the ceiling and the walls. My stomach twisted. My hands shook. I told Daniel, and he laughed nervously, rubbing my back. "You're tired. That's all." I should have listened to that feeling. I should have insisted we leave. I didn't. The following nights, it became routine. Every time the clock struck 12, the whistling returned. Always from somewhere I couldn't locate. Sometimes it was behind me, sometimes above. My body grew tense at the sound. My dreams were nightmares layered on top of real life. The shadow moving closer, whispering, stretching, pressing against the walls of the cabin. Every time I woke, my blankets were twisted. My slippers left marks on the floor, even though I had barely moved. I tried ignoring it. I tried convincing myself it was stress, too much wine, the isolation of the snow-covered woods. But then I started noticing other things. Small depressions in the snow outside our door, as if someone had walked there, slow and careful, but no footprints led to them. Sometimes, I could feel a cold press of air brush my neck when I was alone, subtle, almost imperceptible, but unmistakable. Something was in the room with me, always just behind the edge of perception. One night, Daniel fell asleep first. I stayed awake, clutching a pillow, trying to make sense of the whistling. I felt it before I saw it. A presence hovering behind me. I turned slowly. The shadow was there, stretching along the wall. The whistling rose closer this time. My chest tightened, my fingers trembling. I backed into the corner, bumping into the wall, the vibration of the wood beneath my feet echoing through me. The shadow stretched toward me, not fast, not violent, but it pressed against my skin like cold water, filling my lungs with icy dread. I screamed. I don't know how loud it was, but Daniel woke instantly, eyes wide. He shook me. Claire, what is it? Couldn't explain. I could barely breathe. The whistling stopped the second I made eye contact with him, leaving only the sound of my own panicked breathing and the hammering of my heart. We didn't sleep for the rest of the night. I sat by the window, watching the trees bend in the wind, listening for the faint whistle that might return at any second. I wanted to leave. I wanted to run. But I told myself I would be calm. I told myself it was over. I was lying. I wasn't. Even now, years later, every time Christmas rolls around, I hear it again. Not the music box, never the music box, but that whistling. High, deliberate, faint, echoing in empty rooms. I catch shadows in corners, elongated, stretching, pressing closer when the lights go out. Daniel moved out of state after that winter, away from the cabin, away from me, and I stayed behind. I never opened that gift again. I never want to. Some things you shouldn't touch. Some things shouldn't be invited in. And some shadows follow you long after the snow has melted, long after the music has stopped. They don't need a body. They don't need a name. They just wait, patient, whistling, stretching, pressing against the edges of your life. And I still hear it. Every winter, every night, waiting. My name's Ryan. I'm 34 now, but this happened when I was 27. Back when I was broke, exhausted, and working the night shift at a gas station off Highway 93 in rural Montana. I used to joke that nothing ever happened out there. One road, one flickering sign, one empty parking lot surrounded by endless snow-choked fields. But that night, that Christmas Eve, I stopped joking about anything. I didn't think he was real. Not Santa. Not the myth. Not the thing people see on snowy nights and laugh off in the morning. I thought I was safe in my little booth with my burnt coffee and humming lights. I didn't realize how thin the glass really was, or how easily something could step out of the dark and breathe on it. I remember every second of that night, whether I want to or not. The storm had been building all afternoon, wind pushing so hard against the windows that the whole building vibrated. Snow came in thick sideways sheets, white noise swallowing the world. By the time my shift started, visibility was maybe 10 feet. After that, it was just white, like someone erased the horizon. I should have listened to that feeling, the one that said something was off. But I told myself I was just tired. I wasn't. Work was slow, always was around Christmas. Most sane people were home with their families, not buying diesel and cigarettes from a guy who hadn't slept more than 4 hours in days. I was wiping down the counter, humming to keep myself awake, when the temperature dropped. Not a normal draft, not the usual cold air from the front door. A sudden, sharp chill that cut through my jacket and crawled up my spine. My breath fogged instantly, the windows frosted at the edges, tracing patterns like fingers dragging along the glass. That was the first sign something was wrong. And then I saw him. At first, just a shape emerging from the storm. A dark blot moving in that blinding whiteout. Slow, unsteady, like he was walking underwater. The motion sensor lights flicked on, their beams slicing through the snow. And for a moment, I wished they hadn't. He wore red, a long, heavy coat the color of old blood. Fur-lined hood pulled low. He staggered across the lot, leaning forward as if he was fighting the wind, except the wind wasn't hitting him. The snow didn't seem to land on him. It drifted around him, parting like it knew what he was. I tried to tell myself he was just some drunk guy, someone who slid off the road and needed help. I wanted that to be true so badly my hands were shaking. I pressed the intercom button. "You all right out there?" My voice cracked. He didn't answer. He just lifted his head. Slow, too slow. And when his hood tilted back, the lights hit his face. His eyes weren't, right? Maybe they were blue once. human once. But now they were too pale, almost white, like cracked ice stretched too thin. And his breath, God, every exhale poured from his mouth in thick clouds. But they didn't drift away. They curled, spiraled, crawled along the air like living mist. My heart hammered so hard I felt it in my throat. Sir, I can call somebody. I turned to grab the phone. Dialed the sheriff's office out of instinct. No ring, no dial tone, just silence. Not even static. I hung up, tried again. Nothing. I should have taken that as a warning. Should have locked the doors. Should have hidden in the back office and waited. But fear makes you stupid. I stepped toward the window. The glass fogged instantly from his breath, even though he was still 15 feet away. His chest expanded, slow and deliberate, and that freezing mist rolled out again, thick enough to coat the window. It had weight. That's what terrified me most. Breath isn't supposed to feel heavy. I backed away, my hands trembling so hard the keys on my belt jingled. He took a step closer. His boots didn't crunch in the snow, didn't leave prints, like the ground didn't exist under him. Then he smiled. Not a warm, Merry Christmas smile. A stretched, cold, hungry curve of his lips that didn't match the deadness in his eyes. The kind of smile a predator might give before deciding whether you were worth the effort. The lights flickered. Once, twice. Then the entire station went dark. I froze. Couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. The storm outside roared against the glass, and I heard something else. A low, dragging sound moving along the front wall, like fingertips trailing across metal. My skin crawled. I couldn't move. I kept telling myself to run, to hide, to do anything. But I stood there, staring into the dark like a terrified child. The generators kicked back on after maybe 10 seconds, but it felt like a lifetime. The lights hummed. The heater sputtered. He was gone. Just gone. No footsteps. No movement. No sign he had ever been there, except the mist still clinging to the window, thinning slowly like it didn't want to leave. My whole body was shaking. I grabbed the phone again, trying 911 this time. Still dead. The line wasn't cut. The storm hadn't knocked it out. The wires were fine. It was something else. Something inhuman. The sheriff finally arrived 40 minutes later after a tourist slid into a ditch down the road. I practically ran outside when he stepped through the door. I tried to explain everything. What I saw, what I felt. He just stared at the empty snow-covered lot and shook his head. No tracks, he said. No man walked across this since morning. I didn't argue. Didn't bother. How do you explain something like that to someone who's never felt their blood turn to ice? I quit 2 days later. And here's the part one still don't talk about. The part I'm ashamed to admit. I still see him. Not often. Not clearly. But on certain winter nights. Nights when the wind sounds like it's breathing. Nights when the cold sinks a little too deep. I'll look outside and see a shape standing just beyond the streetlight. Red coat. White eyes. Breath curling upward like smoke. He never moves. Never speaks. Never steps closer. But he waits. For what? I don't know. Maybe for someone who's alone. Maybe for someone who notices him. Or maybe he's waiting for me to finally understand what I saw that night. But I do understand. I understand it too well. Some things walk the snow. Some things wear the shape of winter. And some things don't need chimneys to get inside. My name is Daniel. I'm 31 now, but I was 25 when it happened. Back when I was living alone in a rented house in upstate New York. One of those old places with drafty windows, creaking floors, and a kind of tired loneliness trapped in the walls. I wasn't doing well back then. Not emotionally. Not financially. My girlfriend had just left. My job had just cut my hours. And Christmas was the last thing on my mind. But the neighborhood loved their decorations. Every house on my street glowed with lights, inflatable reindeer, that fake cheerful holiday energy. I remember looking out my window that night, thinking how beautiful everything looked and how wrong it felt. If I had known what was coming, I never would have moved into that house. I never would have spent that winter alone. That was the year I learned something I wish I could forget. Cold can be alive. Started small. innocent enough that I brushed it off. One window on the north side of the living room always collected huge icicles during winter, much bigger than the other windows. That night, one of them hung almost 3 feet long, thick, clear, sharp like a frozen dagger. I noticed it while turning off the lamp. It swung slightly, just a soft sway from the wind outside. I didn't think anything of it. Houses shift, drafts move things. It's normal. But then it moved again, this time toward me, not sideways, not a sway. It leaned inward, like a finger bending to point, directly at me. A cold pressure gripped my chest. You know that instinct you get when something's wrong and your body knows before your brain does. That's what hit me. My breathing stuttered. My throat tightened. Every hair on my arms lifted. I told myself it was nothing. Just the wind. Just stress. Just something rational. I wasn't fine, but I told myself I was. I turned away, tried to ignore it, but I heard it. A sound I will never forget. A slow, brittle crack, like ice shifting under weight, like something trying to break free. My heart hammered in my ears. I forced myself to look back. The icicle wasn't pointing anymore. It was pressing against the window. The glass bowed inward just a little under its tip. I ran. I didn't think. I didn't look back. I didn't even turn the lights off. I ran to my bedroom and slammed the door hard enough to shake the frame. I sat on the floor with my back against it, shaking, listening, waiting for something, anything, to tell me I was imagining things. Silence. Nothing but the hum of the heater and the faint rattle of wind outside. I don't know how long I sat there. Maybe an hour. Maybe more. Eventually, I forced myself back into the living room. The icicle was gone, but on the hardwood floor beneath the window was the mark. A deep gouge, jagged, sharp, as if something had stabbed downward with incredible force. I stared at that mark for minutes, feeling my stomach twist, feeling something inside me break, because icicles don't fall inward. They don't break through glass without shattering it. They don't leave marks like that. I didn't sleep in the living room that night, or any night after. I tried to rationalize it. Really, I did. Stress, shadows, an overactive mind from being alone too long. But alone or not, something else lived in that cold. It didn't happen again for the rest of winter. I convinced myself it was all in my head. Life moved on. I started sleeping better. I even went back to the window a few times, laughed at myself for being scared. But then the next year came, and everything changed. It was late November, too early for snow, too warm for frost. That night I came home from work, kicked off my boots, and felt it immediately. The shift in the air. The temperature dropped 10 degrees the second I stepped inside. Not the kind of cold a house gets from being empty. This was sharp, wrong, like stepping into a freezer. The living room window was frosted over. Not lightly, not the delicate kind that forms overnight. Thick, opaque, like someone had pressed ice against it from the outside. My chest tightened. I stepped forward slowly, one careful breath at a time. I wiped a section of frost away with my sleeve. That's when I saw it. An icicle, longer than before, thicker than before, hanging from the inside of the glass. Ice was forming down from the top of the window frame, dripping slowly, building itself into shape. I stumbled backward so fast I hit the couch. My breath fogged the air. The temperature kept dropping, sinking deeper and deeper until my fingers went numb. I could see every exhale, thick clouds rolling from my mouth. The icicle twitched, just once, just a small, deliberate movement, like it knew I was watching. The tip sharpened, stretching downward with a soft crackling sound. The house groaned. The window creaked in its frame. It leaned, inward, toward me. Couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. I felt the cold sliding across the room, crawling up my legs, sinking into my ribs like hooks. Then it happened. The icicle snapped. Not cleanly, not from gravity. It lunged. A chunk of it shot forward, slamming into the floor with enough force to splinter the wood. Shards exploded outward, slicing my arm, stinging like frozen needles. I screamed. I ran. I didn't look back. I bolted out the front door into the crisp night, gasping for warm air, clutching my bleeding arm. I didn't care about my jacket, my keys, anything. I sat on the curb across the street until the shaking stopped. A neighbor saw me and helped me get to my car. He thought someone broke in. But no intruder leaves ice behind. When I came back the next morning with the landlord, the window was clear. The frost was gone. The temperature was normal. And the living room floor? The gouge was deeper, much deeper, like something had been stabbing down over and over after I left. The landlord blamed old pipes and condensation. I moved out the same day. But here's the part that really gets to me. The part that keeps me awake even now, 6 years later. Followed me. Last winter, in my new apartment, almost 2 hours away, I woke up to a familiar feeling. That same drop in temperature. That same sting in the air that freezes your breath before you exhale. I walked into the kitchen and saw it. A single, perfect icicle, hanging from the outside of the window, pointing inward. At me. No frost anywhere else. No snow on the roof. No ice on any other window. Just that one. Long, clear, sharp, watching me, waiting. I don't know what it wants. I don't know why it chose me. All I know is this. Cold remembers you. And once something in that cold notices you, once it points at you, it doesn't stop. It just waits for the next winter. I'm 37 now, but this happened when I was 26. And I still hear those footsteps every time winter comes. Minnesota winters can feel like another world. Quiet. Too quiet sometimes. But that Christmas morning, that was the first time I realized silence can stalk you. Back then, I lived alone in a small house outside Duluth. It wasn't anything special. Just a one-bedroom place with old wooden walls that creaked every time the temperature dropped. I was between jobs, between relationships, between just about everything. And when you're that kind of lonely, your mind picks up on things most people ignore. I remember waking up that morning with the kind of heavy chest that comes from cold air and bad sleep. The windows were frosted white, the floorboards freezing, my breath visible inside my own home. It was Christmas, but it didn't feel like it. No family, no friends visiting, just me. I should have stayed inside. If I had known what was coming, I would have never opened that door. The snow outside was knee-deep, thick, untouched, the kind of white that almost glows. And the air was still, no wind, no birds, nothing. Felt like the entire world was holding its breath. I grabbed my shovel and stepped outside to clear the driveway. Every scoop made that heavy scraping sound, the metal edge cutting into ice. Steam rolled from my mouth. My fingers started going numb almost instantly. Typical Minnesota morning. I kept telling myself to just finish up fast and get back inside to the heater. But something felt off. I don't know how else to say it. Sometimes your body knows before your mind does. I'd shovel a few feet, stop to breathe, then keep going. The cold was so sharp it felt like it cut through my jacket. After maybe 10 minutes, I paused again, leaning on the shovel, trying to stretch out my back. And that's when I noticed them. Footprints. Not mine. Fresh ones. Deep ones. Running perfectly parallel behind me. At first my brain refused to understand what I was seeing. I literally stared at them for a solid 5 seconds before my stomach caved inward. They were following my path. Exactly. Step for step. But what really made the hair rise on my neck was the spacing. Every time I had stopped, those footprints stopped too. I spun around so fast I nearly slipped. My breath punched out of me in a pale cloud. There was no one there. Just snow. Trees. The empty road. Nothing moving. Not even the air. But the footprints were there. Dark impressions cutting through untouched snow. Foot after foot after foot. Ending just 3 steps behind me. Someone had been standing right there. Close enough for me to feel their breath on my neck. Except I hadn't felt anything. I should have listened to the panic rising in my chest. I should have run inside, called someone, done anything. But I told myself the same stupid lie most people do. It's fine. I'm overthinking. I wasn't. The longer I stared, the more wrong they felt. The shape wasn't normal. Too long. Too narrow. Like someone walking barefoot. but stretched out. The toe marks curled slightly downward, almost claw-like. My heartbeat turned violent. My hands were shaking so hard I dropped the shovel. The metal hit the ground with a dull thud. That sound, just that tiny sound, echoed through the quiet like a gunshot. Then a crunch. One single footstep behind me, but not from the snow, from the air, like someone had stepped without being visible. I felt the vibration travel through my boots. Not loud, not soft, just real. That was the moment I finally ran. I didn't look back. I didn't try to understand. I just sprinted inside, slammed the door, locked it, then leaned against it while my lungs tried to recover. My entire body was trembling. My breath came out in short bursts. You know that feeling when the world feels wrong? When you know, down to your bones, that something unnatural is inches away from you. That's what it was like. I stayed inside the rest of the day. Didn't open the curtains. Didn't check the driveway. When night fell, I shoved a chair under the doorknob like I lived in some cheap horror movie. I didn't sleep, but the more time passed, the more I convinced myself I'd imagined it. That loneliness had gotten the best of me. That the strange footprints were some trick of the snow. Until the next morning. I cracked the door open just a few inches, heart pounding hard enough to make the wood vibrate. The driveway was still mostly covered, but near the door, the footprints were back. The same long, narrow shape, the same claw-like curl. Only this time, they didn't follow my path. This time, they walked directly to my front door, stopped, turned slightly sideways as if whoever or whatever it was had been staring into the house. I shut the door so fast the glass rattled. That was the last Christmas I ever celebrated alone. I moved a few months later, told people it was because of my job. But the truth was, I couldn't stay there. Something had found me, something that knew the sound of my pauses, something that could follow me without ever showing itself. And for a while I thought leaving solved it, but it didn't. Every year on Christmas morning, no matter where I am, what state, whose house I'm staying in, I find them, footprints in the snow, leading from the darkness, always stopping a few steps away, always watching. The police wrote it off as a prank. Friends said I needed therapy. Someone even joked it was a wild animal. But animals don't mimic your footsteps. Animals don't stop when you stop. Animals don't follow you across states. Whatever it is, it hasn't touched me. Not yet, but something tells me it's waiting, getting closer, growing bolder every year. Last Christmas, the footprints didn't stop 3 steps away. They stopped 1, right outside my door. And this year, I swear on everything, I heard breathing through the wood, slow, deep, like warm air hitting winter cold. I think it's learning me, learning how I move, how I breathe, how I sleep. And every time the snow falls, I get this sinking feeling in my chest. That one year, I won't just see footprints, I'll see what's making them. And when that happens, I don't think anyone will ever hear from me again. I'm 34 now, but this happened when I was 25. And I swear I still smell that candle sometimes. That same sickly sweet smoke. It hits me in random places. At work, in my car, sometimes in the middle of the night. That's when I know it remembers me. Back then, I was the kind of person who believed solitude would fix everything. Heartbreak, go somewhere quiet, work stress, isolate, emotional burnout, hide far away from people. So that Christmas Eve, I rented a small lodge in Vermont. Middle of nowhere, a frame cabin, tight wooden hallways that smelled like old pine and dust. I wanted silence. I got it. I should have listened to that feeling I had when I first arrived, the one that whispered, "Turn around." But I didn't, not even when I saw the power lines sagging dangerously under the weight of ice. Not even when the caretaker said, "You'll hear things. Don't let it get to you." Old lodges breathe. He laughed afterward, but his eyes didn't. If I'd known what was coming, I swear I would have driven all the way back home in a blizzard. The first 6 hours were normal. I made tea, read a book by the window, watched the snow pile up outside until everything looked swallowed. But by late evening, the wind shifted. It stopped howling, stopped moving. The world outside went unnaturally still. Then the power died. The entire cabin fell into blackness so fast it felt like someone had put a bag over my head. The heater cut out. The refrigerator clicked off. The hum of electricity disappeared. Just silence. The kind that presses against your skin. My breath fogged in front of me. The temperature dropped fast, too fast. It felt like the cold was crawling, inch by inch, up my spine. I told myself not to panic. I told myself this was normal for old lodges. I told myself I was fine. I wasn't. I fumbled through the hallway, hands against the rough wooden walls. My fingertips brushed peeling varnish, splinters, dust. That's when I felt it. A small metal holder mounted on the wall. Something cylindrical sitting in it. Candle. I didn't question it. I should have. I should have wondered why a modern, rented lodge had an old candle tucked in the hall like some relic. But cold messes with your thinking. Fear messes with it even more. I lit it with the lighter from my bag. That was the first mistake. The flame flickered weak at first, then steadied into a dim orange glow. It threw long shadows across the hall, too long, almost stretched. The smoke drifted upward, and the moment it hit my nose, my stomach twisted. It didn't smell like wax, or wood, or anything familiar. It smelled sweet, sugary, rotten underneath, like fruit left out too long mixed with something chemical. My eyes watered instantly. I waved the smoke away and stepped back, but the candle's shadow didn't move with the flame. It pulsed, subtle at first, like it breathed. I blinked hard, told myself I was tired. My vision was playing tricks. The candlelight was dancing weird against the wood. All logical explanations my brain threw at me because it didn't want to accept the truth. Then the shadow slid sideways. Not the candle. The shadow. It detached slightly from the base of the flame and stretched along the wall like a smear of ink. No shape, no outline, just darkness that felt thick. My breath went shallow. That's not real, I whispered to myself. It's just the light playing tricks. But then I heard it. Breathing. Not mine. Not the creaking cabin. A slow, heavy inhale right behind me. My skin went tight. Every hair on my arms rose. The air behind me felt warmer, wet almost, like someone's mouth was near my neck. I didn't turn around. Couldn't. I just stepped backward once. And the breathing followed. Perfectly timed. A half second behind my movements. My entire body locked up. My fingers were trembling so hard I nearly dropped the lighter. The candle flame flickered violently, the shadow rippling like water under it. I finally forced myself to move slow, deliberate steps toward the staircase that led to the exit. My boots scuffed softly against the old wood. The breathing followed, each inhale dragging like someone struggling to fill their lungs. When I reached the top of the stairs, the candlelight stretched down the steps, but the shadow was already at the bottom, waiting, long, still, almost human-shaped now, just dark enough that the boards beneath it disappeared. My throat closed. I couldn't even make a sound. Every instinct screamed run, but my legs turned to ice. Then the breathing behind me stopped, and something colder leaned into my back. Not wind, not imagined, something with weight. I bolted. My feet slammed against the stairs so fast I nearly slipped. The air warped. I swear I felt fingers, cold, bony, brush the back of my jacket. The candle went out behind me with a soft hiss, throwing the cabin into complete darkness. I didn't look back. Not once. I just threw myself at the front door, grabbed the handle, and yanked. It jammed. Of course it jammed. I rattled it, shoved it, slammed my shoulder into the wood. My breath came in ragged, wet gasps. The darkness behind me felt like it was swelling forward, like it had weight, speed, hunger. Then, through the glass panel next to the door, a faint glow reflected behind me. The candlelight, but I hadn't relit it, and the reflection wasn't of me. It was taller, narrower, a shape that shouldn't exist in any normal dimension. The door finally gave, and I stumbled into the snow, falling to my knees. Cold shot through my palms, grounding me. I scrambled up and ran, didn't matter where. My footsteps punched deep holes in the fresh snow as I tore through the night. I didn't stop until I saw headlights from a distant passing truck. The driver almost didn't believe me. The police didn't believe me either. They checked the lodge, said the candle wasn't there, said there was no sign of forced entry, said I probably panicked in the blackout. But I know what I saw, I know what I heard, and I know what was breathing behind me. Every year since, I avoid candles. Even scented ones in stores make my hands shake. Some nights I wake up choking on that same sweet smell. And sometimes, in the corner of my eye, I see something shift on the wall just for a second. A shadow that doesn't belong to anything. A reminder that it followed me, that it's still learning my shape. And someday, I think it'll step out of the wall for real. When that happens, I won't be fast enough. I'm 37 now, living 2 states away, new number, new address, new life. But that voice still follows me. Sometimes in dreams. Sometimes in the quiet hum of my apartment when everything goes still. And every year when Christmas Eve gets close, I start hearing the faintest click. Like a phone line waking up. But let me back up. I need to tell this right. Back then, I lived alone in a small duplex in Detroit. I was 26, working nights at a warehouse, living paycheck to paycheck. I didn't have much hand-me-down furniture, creaking pipes, a cheap landline phone that came with the rental. I wasn't the type to celebrate holidays. Christmas Eve was just another lonely night on the calendar. And maybe that's why what happened hit so hard. No distractions. No noise. Just me and a house too old to be safe. It was 11:57 p.m. I remember the time exactly because I just checked the wall clock, debating whether to shower or just fall asleep on the couch. Then the phone rang. A sharp, old-school ring. Too loud for a silent house. Too sudden for my tired brain. I actually flinched. My heart jumped in a way I still feel when I hear certain ringtones. I should have let it go to voicemail. That was the first sign something was wrong. But when you live alone long enough, any sound feels like company. So I answered. Hello. Silence. Just the faint hum of static. And something else under it. Breathing. Wet, ragged breathing like someone pressing their mouth too close to the receiver. Then a voice. Deep, low, rasping like broken glass dragged across concrete. Michael. My full name. Exact pronunciation. No one called me that except my mother. I remember my pulse spiking, the cold bloom of fear spreading through my chest. I tried to stay logical. Wrong number. A prank. Someone who knew me messing around. Except no one knew I was home. No one knew I'd changed my number the week before. And no one should have known the detail it said next. The voice whispered my old address. The street I grew up on. The color of the house. The dog I had as a kid. Every detail rolled out slowly, deliberately, like it was savoring the memories. I slammed the phone down so hard the plastic cracked. My hands were shaking. I still remember how cold they felt, like the blood had drained out of them. I kept staring at the phone, half expecting it to ring again immediately. Didn't. Not that night. But I barely slept. I kept hearing phantom clicks, phantom rings, that same rasp of breath. I told myself I was imagining it. I told myself it was stress. I told myself I was fine. I wasn't. The next night, the phone rang again. 11:57 p.m. Same minute. Same tone. Same sickening weight in my stomach. This time I didn't want to answer. My instinct screamed don't. But fear makes you curious. Curiosity makes you stupid. I picked up. The same deep inhale filled the line, followed by that voice. Except this time, it sounded closer. Like whoever it was had leaned even deeper into the receiver. I know what you did, it rasped. I froze, because I had done something. Something from years ago that I never talked about. Something I swore I buried. And hearing that sentence felt like ice water being poured into my bones. Then the counting started. 3 minutes until midnight. I didn't wait for more. I hung up. For the next week, it was the same routine. Night after night. 11:57 p.m. exactly. Sometimes it whispered childhood secrets. Sometimes it listed the names of people I hadn't spoken to in years. Sometimes it laughed. But every night, eventually, it whispered the countdown. 3 minutes, 2, 1. Like it was waiting for something. Like midnight meant something to it. By the 4th night, I started unplugging the phone. Didn't matter, the line still rang. I told myself it wasn't possible. But the ringing cut through the dead wire like it had its own power source. By the 6th night, I stopped answering. Didn't matter, the voice still found me. It started whispering without me picking up. Its words leaked through the speaker like the line was open on its own. I got used to falling asleep with the blankets over my head like a kid hiding from monsters. By the 8th night, the voice changed. It didn't stay in the phone. I was lying in bed, covers tight around me, the room cold enough that I could see my breath even though the heat was on. My heart kept racing like it knew something was coming. Then, at 11:57 p.m., the phone didn't ring. Instead, I heard a low electronic click, like something connecting itself. And then, Michael, right behind me, not through the phone, not across the room. Behind me, the voice vibrated the air, heavy enough that I felt it press against my spine. My entire body seized. My lungs locked up. My fingers dug into the mattress. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. The cold in the room thickened, settling around my body like a second skin. I didn't look. If I looked, I knew I'd see something I wouldn't come back from. The voice leaned closer. I felt the breath at my ear, hot, damp, wrong. Midnight, it whispered. My body finally snapped out of the paralysis and I bolted out of bed, ran to the living room, grabbed my keys, and fled the house barefoot into the snow. I didn't go back for 2 days. When I did, the house felt drained, empty in a way that didn't feel natural. I replaced the phone, changed the locks, called the police. They found nothing. But even after I moved, miles away, new city, new number, new phone, the calls didn't stop. Not every night, not even every month, but every Christmas Eve, 11:57 p.m., my phone vibrates. Unknown number, no caller ID. And when I let it ring out, the voicemail is always the same. A long breath, a slow whisper, 3 minutes until midnight. That's why I'm telling this now. Because last year it stopped counting. Last year it said something new. No more minutes, Michael. I'm already here. I don't know what it means. I don't know when it's coming. But I know one thing. You'd be shocked how many phones can ring even when they're turned off. My name's Aaron. I'm 33 now, living just outside of Boston. And I know how this sounds. I know how impossible it sounds. But I'm telling you this because the guilt keeps me awake. And because somebody out there needs to hear it before they bring something like that into their home. This happened 3 winters ago. Back then, I lived alone in a 5th-floor apartment near Tremont Street. I'd been going through a rough patch. My breakup, my work stress, the empty rooms that felt louder after dark. So when December rolled in, I told myself I needed something warm, something normal, something that made the place feel alive again. I guess that's the irony. It did make the place feel alive, just not in the way I expected. I should have walked away the moment I saw it. That was the first sign something was wrong. I bought the tree from a pop-up lot on the edge of the city. One of those places that looks charming during the day, but becomes something else entirely when the sun goes down. Rows of tight, silent pines leaning in the wind. The kind of silence that feels like it's listening. The guy running the booth didn't greet me, didn't even look at me. He just pointed at a far corner like he was trying to get rid of something. That's where I saw it. A tall, thick pine, almost too perfect. Full branches, dark green needles. But when I walked closer, I picked up this smell. Not pine, not fresh wood, but wet earth, damp rot, something metallic, almost like blood that had dried on old tools. I should have trusted my gut. I didn't. I told myself I was being dramatic. I took it home. The first odd thing happened when I started decorating it. The lights reflected off the windows, washing the apartment in warm gold. For the first time in months, I felt okay. My hands moved on autopilot, looping the string around the branches, placing ornaments one by one. But whenever I stepped back to look at my work, I swore the tree wasn't in the same position. Seemed closer, leaning slightly in my direction. I laughed it off. I told myself it was just the angle, the shadows, the wine I'd been sipping. But the smell, that damp soil and cold iron, got stronger the longer I stood there. Like the tree was breathing it onto me, like warm breath hitting the back of my neck. And then, I felt something brush my wrist. A branch. Just one. Slow. Deliberate. I pulled my hand back and stared, waiting for it to move again. Didn't. Of course it didn't. I tried to shake off the chill crawling up my spine. I should have listened to that feeling. I should have trusted that whisper in my head telling me something was wrong. Instead, I went to bed. I woke up sometime after 3 a.m. No dream, no noise. Just that sudden jolt awake like something invisible had yanked me to consciousness. The apartment was silent, painfully silent. Then I heard it. Faint scratch. At first I thought it was outside, maybe a branch against the window. But then the sound moved. Scratch, 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 up the wall, across the wall, higher, lower, like something dragging its fingers or claws, slowly along the drywall, searching for something. I sat up, heart thudding so loud I felt it in my teeth. The sound was coming from the living room, from the tree. I should have stayed in bed. I should have called someone. But curiosity is a stupid, dangerous thing. I stepped into the hallway, and the air changed instantly. Cold, sharp, and thick, like walking into a freezer full of wet soil and rusted metal. I turned the corner, and the tree was leaning, not toward the window, not toward the room. It was leaning directly toward the hallway, toward me. I didn't breathe, couldn't. One by one, the branches shifted, small movements but real, like a slow exhale. The scratching wasn't coming from the walls. It was the tree, the branches, dragging across the floor as it moved. That was when I realized it wasn't just shifting position. It was inching forward. I stumbled back into my bedroom and slammed the door shut. I didn't sleep. I just sat on the floor with my back against the door until the sun finally came up. When I opened the door the next morning, the tree was standing perfectly straight in its corner like nothing had happened. No scratch marks, no trail, no sign it had ever moved. But I couldn't pretend anymore. I dragged it outside and left it in the hallway. I thought it was over. I was wrong. The next morning, I opened my eyes and felt watched. That heavy pressure on your chest when someone is standing too close. I looked toward the corner. It was there, back in the apartment, back in the exact same spot. A branch pointed slightly upward, like the tree was looking at me. I don't remember dropping the phone. I don't remember running to the door. I only remember the smell. Damp earth, rot, metal, hot breath on my face as I passed by it. And the sound, a slow, steady creaking, the sound of wood bending under something alive inside it, like it was waking up. I grabbed my coat, ran out, and didn't stop until I hit the street. I stayed outside until noon, just pacing and repeating the same words. It's not real. Can't be real. Trees don't move. But when I finally forced myself to return inside, I found the door cracked open. And inside, the tree wasn't by the wall anymore. It was in the middle of the living room, like it had been waiting, branches spread, needles bristling, the trunk splitting open slightly like a mouth. I ran. I didn't pack a thing. I didn't even turn off the lights. I sprinted down the stairwell, out onto the street, and didn't come back for 3 days. When I finally returned with 2 friends and the building manager, the tree was gone, completely gone. No needles, no scratches, no drag marks, nothing, like it had walked out on its own. I don't live in that building anymore. I don't buy real trees. I don't even walk near Christmas tree lots. But here's the part that still keeps me awake. Last year, the news ran a small story about 3 missing kids from a neighborhood just 15 minutes from where I used to live. They disappeared from a park. The only thing left behind was a trail in the snow, thin, long, drag marks. Marks that looked exactly like the ones I saw on my walls. Marks that looked like something being pulled or dragging itself. And the police report mentioned one more detail. Witnesses said the park smelled like damp soil and iron. I know how this sounds. I know what people think when they hear it. But I'm telling you this for one reason. If you ever buy a Christmas tree and the smell isn't pine, run. Don't wait for it to breathe.